there, gentle viewers. You've just caught me catching up on an old favorite. It's wonderful to get lost in a mystery, isn't it? The tense suspense of a whodunit, the mayhem, the murder. Don't they just take you away? Oh, but I'm getting ahead of myself. You see, my name is Ariadne Oliver, and I'm a detective. A real one, mind you. Deerstalkers, magnifying glasses, that sort of thing. Don't look at me like that. There is no detective in England equal to a spinster lady of uncertain age with plenty of time on her hands. Never mind. Appreciative listeners are a rarity indeed, and I have reams of paper, oceans of ink, gin in the cabinet, and enough mysteries rumbling around in my head to entertain us for at least a little while longer. So pull up a chair and I'll tell you the story of a wealthy man found dead beneath his second-story window in a pile of brittle, fallen leaves, no breath left to curl white in the bitter chill of November air. Whether true or false, reality or fiction, you will have to decide for yourselves, but come with me now, if you will, on this journey of the mind as I reopen the case of a death in the family. Hello and welcome to Flights of Fandom, the show where we create one-shot or several-shot improvised fan fiction using our favorite tabletop role-playing games. My name is Marissa. I use she/her pronouns and go by Critical Kitten most places on the internet, and I will be your mastermind, or rather your facilitator for the evening. Agatha Christie once dedicated a book to all those who lead monotonous lives in hopes that they may experience at second hand the delights and dangers of adventure. And tonight, we hope to give you such an adventure using the Lady Susan PI expansion of Good Society, a Jane Austen RPG system by Story Brewers Roleplaying, which is a highly collaborative role-playing game that uses narrative currency instead of dice. That's right, no dice here. And to top it all off, our rendition of this classic piece of literature will take place in and use the narrative stylings of the Agatha Christie novels. Welcome one and all to Death in the Family. But what would our murder mystery be without its dramatis personae? I am delighted to introduce you to my cast of suspects. So let's go around the table, each give your name, pronouns, where we can find you on the socials, and the name of your major character that you will be playing today. Don't worry, we will introduce the characters in more detail a bit later. So let's start with Hopper.
That is me. What's up, everybody? I'm Hopper, and I can be found in, on, and around the interwebs at Fail Deadly, and that's with a 3 instead of an E at the Deadly, because I'm a bad person. Maybe I am in game too, who knows? I shall never tell. But I use they, them pronouns, and I am playing Chester Walnut Hawthorne, who uses he, him pronouns.
Lovely. And right on over down to Pooja.
Hello, everybody. I am Pooja. I use she, her pronouns, and tonight I am playing Lady Eleanor Walnut Hawthorne, who uses she, her pronouns.
And on to Marcy.
Hey y'all, I'm Marcy, aka Experimental Madness. That's the name. You can find me about most places around the internet, except for Twitter, where I'm to remain the resident cryptid forever. And tonight I am playing Tansy Templeton. We both use she, her pronouns.
And finally, to wrap us up, our intrepid producer, David.
Hey everybody, David here. He, him. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a game designer. You can check out all my game stuff over at dbb-8.itch.io. You can also check me out on Instagram and Twitter at dbrunelbrutman. And this evening, I am playing one Alton Hawthorne. Also, he, him.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Now, before we dive in, first a word about the collaborative nature of the game. So some of you may be familiar with Good Society, but for those who are not, unlike a standard TTRPG where a GM crafts a world that players navigate, we are all going to be working together as co-authors, which means that there is no narrative power that I have as the GM that my players don't have. My function is to serve the story by keeping an eye on pace and the flow of scenes, and also to tease out elements of character and story that could make our game richer. What this means, however, is that you'll see us talking a lot together between ourselves to suggest things for one another's characters, thematic narrative pivots, that sort of thing. Instead of rolling dice, as aforementioned, players can influence the story by using a narrative currency called the Resolve token, which can be spent to dramatically change the story or impact other characters in a big way, leaked character secrets, that sort of thing. Negotiation takes place during the exchange of Resolve tokens as a safeguard of consent and ensures that everyone is on board with the proposed changes to the story. When significant change comes at the cost of a Resolve token, other types of events will not have a major influence over the game and therefore do not require a Resolve token. Say like there's a cat in the family estate or something. Our game today is a little different from the Good Society you might have seen on the channel before because it is a murder drama. It is not, however, about who did the deed, but what happens next. The game follows the drama and accusations in the wake of Walnut's demise. As players, we all know the identity of the murderer and accomplice. These are suspect roles that have been assigned to each of our characters. But we are not going to share that secret with you because it will make the stream a little more fun to see if you can figure it out. We, however, are here to see how the drama unfolds for the characters. As this is a one-shot, we will only be going through one cycle of play, and to boot, that cycle of play looks a little different from standard Good Society. It will effectively look like a novel chapter at the top. There is a special phase called the interview phase, where we interview each of the characters one-on-one. There will be an epistolary phase, which you may remember is when we write letters to one another. A second novel chapter, a confrontation, and then finally an epilogue. One other mechanical thing to note before we get started, monologue tokens, everyone starts off with one of those and you can spend it at any point in the game to force another character to have a spotlight moment and share their inner monologue during a particular moment, current or past, out loud. If you still have your token, by the end you are forced to use it in the epilogue, or in this case, I will force you to use it in the confrontation because that's fun, to make sure that everyone gets a chance to monologue. In this particular case, I am also playing the titular character. In this case, we are calling her Lady Ariadne Oliver from the Christie universe, who is the only connection in the game. So you may remember from past Good Society that traditionally the cast would not only play their major character, they would also play connected characters. For a one-shot, it's a little hard to juggle all of that. So you've got your major characters, you've got Lady Ariadne, and that's what we're going to work with. Prior to stream time, we already went through the collaboration and backstory phases, and we decided that we will be playing a black comedy, which is unique to Lady Susan the expansion, as a tone for the game. The gender power balance we have set will be historical, and there is no hidden information in the game. Any questions from the cast on things I should elaborate on? No? All right, in that case, Lord Walnut was found dead earlier this morning by his valet. Foul play has been suspected. Lord Walnut's lawyer is on their way and has been paid a handsome fee to secure a certain lady detective to shine any light on the matter that might affect their rights under the will. The evening prior, Lord Walnut invited those closest to him to attend a family portrait painting. However, the celebrations met an unfortunate end, and he was found under the second-story window. We open our tale on a cold November afternoon. Everything is dark and a little dreary. The wind is blowing through. Across the manor house of the Walnut Estate, there are many windows, big, glassy, and unseeing. They sometimes seem to reflect certain kinds of light, but in this particular case, the light they're reflecting is somber, much like the mood in the estate. The camera travels over the turrets and tops of the estate as we pan down to see our first character. Alton, could you tell us what you've been doing this morning? Just prior to the arrival of Lord Walnut's lawyer and Lady Ariadne?
Well, as you're well aware, I am a businessman, and I have a great many affairs to take care of. I awoke early, did my customary stroll about the grounds, and immediately got to work with my morning tea. There
And
are
what
quite a few
what did
things.
that look like, Alton? Your morning routine?
What did it look like?
Yes. What did it look like?
Well, I awake, of course, have my valet dress me, somber clothing for the occasion, and then proceed down to the dining room where I take my tea and bread with butter, little
Just butter?
jam.
Just a bit of jam. Important to note.
Important not to indulge too much.
Remind me, what is your relationship to the deceased?
Well, Ernest was my father-in-law and business partner. Mentor, really, for much of my life. Brought me up in the world of business and, well, really took me under his wing, and eventually into his family.
Father-in-law and business partner. Well, is that not a conflict of interest? To have the personal and the commercial competing? Or was that never an issue for you?
Well, perhaps you don't understand. I'm sorry. Your name again?
Ariadne. Ariadne Oliver. Pleasure is mine.
Well, perhaps you don't understand, Miss Oliver, but family is business, and business is family.
Tell me, Alton, you said your name was? Do you have a favorite place in this large estate we find ourselves in? Just a place you like to go?
Yes, of course. I frequently find myself in the study. Ernest was, well, Lord Hawthorne to you, was kind enough to allow me, on visiting the estate, to conduct my affairs there, and, well, we spent quite a few hours, quite an hour there ourselves over the years.
And you wouldn't have happened to have been in that study, would you, when Mr. Lord Walnut met his end?
No. Certainly not. If I were, then, well, I assure you that this whole affair would be moving along quite faster.
Indeed. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hawthorne. We shall speak again soon.
Yes, of course. I do hope you're able to get to the bottom of this.
Well, I am good at what I do. We shall say that, shall we? I will find out what happened here, and rest assured, if you have nothing to do with it, you have nothing to fear.
Well, good. Like I said, family is business and business is family. And a death in the family is bad for business.
I can imagine so. Tansy, where do we find you on this lovely, bright, crisp, somber morning?
Tansy's been up a great deal longer than most members of the household have. She's got lots of chores to finish, even well before even breakfast gets started. She's got to sweep out some of the hearth places, get the fires going, especially when it's such a dreary day like this. She likes to get started on her dusting a bit early, just get some of that out of the way, because she's always got to do it at least 5 times, or she did, because Lord Walnut was very particular about making sure everything was in its proper place and it looking nice for any visitors that might pop in.
Now, Miss Templeton, tell me, did you have a lot to clean up this morning?
Well, the usual, Mum. We had the family in the house, so that's usually a good deal more work for me. Lots of mud on the carpets, and I had to go beat some of the final ones out a number of times because of the mud that was being tracked in. But, it's nothing I'm not used to.
Nothing looked amiss. No untouched furniture. No plates that looked askew. Everything where it should be.
Oh, yeah, outside of the body that was outside.
The body, yes. I imagine that was perhaps out of place. And tell me, Miss Templeton, the portrait that was painted last evening, you noticed it, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, I was in the room while they were revealing it. I got to see it.
Splendid, isn't it? Very beautiful.
Oh, it's very lovely, Mom, yes.
Shame, then, that it seems to have been slashed.
Yes, that was unfortunate, but I wasn't in the room when that part happened.
I imagine not. Now, Tansy, how long have you known Lord Walnut?
Oh, pretty much most of my life, Mum. I grew up not far from here. It was in the village, and Walnut was always very kind to me, and as was his son-in-law, Lord Hawthorne. They got me this position in the house.
Really? They got you the position? And Lord Walnut seemed to have a favoring for you among some of the other servants?
I wouldn't call it a favoring, Mum. That he doesn't really have a lot of time to spend with the household staff, but he was always very nice and not too snippy. I hear stories from some of the other girls in the servants' quarters about some places that they used to work at, and very rough, very cold. Not here.
So you found a nice life here, have you?
I can't complain. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen now, but I think I'll be able to keep my job. The house is still going to need upkeep even after everything is settled.
I imagine so. Well, thank you, Tansy. I'm sure we'll reconvene when the family lawyer gets here, and there'll be more to say, but I appreciate your disclosure and discretion.
You're welcome, Mum. You will let me know if you need anything, tea or anything of that nature while you're here.
A lovely cup of piping Earl Grey would be delightful, thank you.
I'll bring one straight away, Mum.
Much obliged. Eleanor, where do we find you this morning?
You find Eleanor in the parlor. It's one of the smaller sitting rooms on the second floor, and I think she's there. There's a tray with breakfast, untouched tea, and a couple of empty glasses, and she's there lounging in her I'm picturing this very those long robes with the floofy sleeves. Yeah, very, very elegant and day drunk.
How does she look when Lady Ariadne enters the room?
She looks like somebody who has slept in and didn't bother taking last night's makeup off. Very, very apropos for a certain set in the time period. Last night's makeup is tonight's makeup. It's all
of course
smudged, and that in a way that probably shouldn't be for someone her age. A little too old for the Roaring 20s set.
I think Lady Ariadne will approach somewhat trepidatiously.
Oh.
Are you are Eleanor Walnut Hawthorne, are you not?
Yes.
You are the daughter.
Oh, yes, I am a daughter. I am a wife, I'm a mother, I am many things.
I'm sorry, I must not have made myself clear. You are the daughter, the only daughter of Lord Walnut. Is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, yes. I do not know what Papa got up to.
Are you not, troubled by your father's fate? You seem to be quite relaxed.
Darling, what I am is drunk, not relaxed.
Are the two not the same?
What do you expect from a girl whose father just died?
Yes, died. A very sad and unfortunate thing, I would think. Tell me, Miss Walnut Hawthorne, your husband seems to say that family is business and business is family. Do you hold a similar sentiment?
Well, I don't believe anybody has ever cared about what I have to say about that.
Well, you are
Business
the
matter.
heir to his estate, are you not?
In a manner, as far as I'm aware, it should be mine, shouldn't it?
It should be. Interesting. Interesting. Now, tell me, Eleanor, what is your general role here? What do you do besides drink?
What does a lady do? I wake up. When I wake up, I get dolled up for my husband's doubtful pleasure, should he choose to look my way, and I eat the food that is made for me, and I drink the alcohol around, and of course I spend time with my darling Chester.
Chester, that would be your son?
My one and only.
You must be very proud.
Oh, of course. What mother wouldn't be? You'll see when you meet him.
Of course, of course. And you wouldn't have had anything to do with the unfortunate murder of your father. Oh, excuse me, unfortunate death of your father, would you?
As anybody would tell you, I was well passed out by the time that happened. I went a little heavy on the gin yesterday, you see. Standing in a room with a portrait maker will do that to a woman. Rather stuffy.
Did you not like the portrait?
But it's all a pretense. Why bother? It's probably the longest Chester and Alton have been in the same room in years.
You were aware that the portrait was slashed?
No.
I think that's all I need to know for now, Lady Eleanor, but we will be reconvening in the parlor room soon when Lord Walnut's lawyer arrives.
Sure, I'll be here. I think she just rolls over and goes back to sleep.
And she will go off to look for Chester. Chester, where does Lady Ariadne find you?
I believe Lady Ariadne finds Chester in the I'm trying to think of the name. What's the name for the thing that's not a gazebo? It's like one of those unnecessary gentry bullshit buildings.
I mean, you can have a gazebo if you want to
gazebo.
have a gazebo. You are
Gazebo.
perfectly.
A kazubo.
It's yes, you find Chester in the we don't have gazebos here. We have a base gazebo. It's called the gazebo. And it
Nailed
he is currently lounging on a chaise and reading from a book of poetry.
Lounging on a chaise outdoors in the gazebo.
I'm imagining one of those like big stone ones.
Yeah, like it's more like a band, like an outdoor
Like a
band
bandstand
show.
almost?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like a
and maybe
bandstand.
if it has like a thick wall, you could be like a thick, short surrounding, not a fence, but like a
Yeah,
enclosure.
you could
like
be
on
lounging
that
in like a
lying
lawn
down.
chair. A
Yeah,
very
like,
fancy lawn chair.
This is 100% a chaise lounge that has been hauled out here by some poor servant for the purpose of it was Tansy and somebody else at Chester's request, because however is he supposed to enjoy the words of the great poets on this hard cold stone in November outside?
I think Ariadne, as she approaches, looks at you, reading a book of poetry, and points at it. That one's rather good, don't you think?
Indeed, it is. You're familiar with Byron?
Why, of course. I'm just surprised that you are.
Oh, I'm quite well educated, I think you'll find. Despite the many failings that my family has, we do an excellent job in educating. You have met them, yes? I presume you did not start out at the gazebo.
No, I did not imagine that I would find a member of this reputable family out in the gazebo in November, reading Byron nonetheless. I did think that at least I should say your deductions are on point. Congratulations.
And
Now, you are the son of that woman that I just spoke to, Eleanor?
yes, Mama.
And the businessman, that's your father.
Yes. Alton is quite a gem.
Alton? You refer to him by his first name?
We like to be formal here. Haven't you heard?
I do surmise. Tell me, Chester, what do you remember about last night? Anything stick out after the celebrations, after the portrait was painted?
Well, Mother was deep in her cups, and I took the opportunity to take a stroll and look at the stars above. I find them quite fascinating, the studies of the movement of the planets.
Or was it not quite cold?
Well, there are these things that they have invented called coats.
That is very true, but I don't think coats help you very much on something of a cloudy night. How were you able to see many stars at all?
Through the patches that were available to me.
Does that give you a lot of information, Chester? About the positioning and...
Well, in this case, it was not for the scientific, but for the artistic.
I see. You just wished to have the aesthetic experience of gazing upon the stars.
Unfortunately, the clouds precluded any opportunity of a more rigorous examination of the night sky, Madame. And pardon, we haven't fully been introduced. You are presumably with the lawyer?
My name is Ariadne Oliver, and I am a private detective, yes. I was brought here to this estate because your grandfather's lawyer believes that things may not be as they seem, and this, of course, impacts the will.
Oh.
You would know all about that, wouldn't you, Chester?
The will, I'm afraid I'm not particularly involved in any legal matters.
No? You aren't interested in who will inherit Lord Walnut's great wealth?
Oh, I presume it will be my unfortunate father.
Alton, the business is family, family is businessman.
Oh, he's told you that one. He really loves to say that. Don't worry, you'll hear it 1,000 more times in the next 2 days.
And are you sad about your grandfather's passing?
Tragic to fall out the window on such a cold evening, and who knows how long he was there.
Who knows indeed. Well, we shall find out. Trust me, I am the best in the business, and I will get to the bottom of this. Don't worry. In fact, I think I hear the lawyer's carriage approaching now. Shall we adjourn? Follow me. And I think she leads the way back into the house.
If you insist.
We need to establish a name for this estate. What do we want to call it?
We have
Not Walnut Grove?
We have an aggressive tree theme. It is funny if we keep switching species.
Yeah, I do like that. I like that it's yet another kind of tree. Like just another deciduous.
I just
Elm?
have the larch sketch going through my head right now for Monty Python.
Oh my god. For those of you that are not aware, for my full-time job, I am a professional arborist. I'm a tree dork. That is what I do. Do we want to do larch? We could do larch. We could do
Larch Grove?
Yeah, we have a vote for larch in the chat. So
Larch Grove.
Thank you.
yeah, I like Larch Grove. That's
Thank you for
good.
getting my stupid reference.
Terrible.
Amazing.
It's a classic.
So we all are led into the large drawing room at Larch Grove, and as you might expect, these large windows are refracting the cold winter light that's beaming into them, highlighting all the motes of dust that are drifting around the many bookcases and leather furniture that's set up in here. And I think Lady Ariadne ushers you each in to take your place in the drawing room. Does anyone have a particular spot that they go to?
Oh wait, am I being included in this?
Why, of course, you are here. Why shouldn't you be?
Because I've got a lot to do.
Speaking of which, Tansy, could Mother's cups are a little bit empty.
Yes, darling.
Could you perhaps fetch some refreshments?
Be a dear.
Yes, yes, Mum. Right away.
Eleanor will immediately go to the whatever multiple seater there is and like drop into the corner and like toss her legs on. Yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of. So why are we here now?
Yeah, I think Mr. Hawthorne is going to just sort of take up a post off to the side, like next to Eleanor, and sort of cross his arms and stand and just sort of like, you know, every once in a while just flashing a disapproving glance down at his wife. Like they're together and he wants you to know it, but like he's displeased.
I think Ariadne clocks this, but she files this in her back pocket for later. As the lawyer, kind of hunched looking and very uptight, kind of walks into the room, strides very purposefully, looks at Ariadne. Well, have we got everyone assembled? Well, yes, it looks like we have everyone assembled.
I think at that moment, Tansy comes back into the room with a new carafe and a couple of extra glasses and sets it down on the table and just like notices there's like a beat of silence, and then she takes a seat on one of like the chairs and can't handle like all the eyes on her, gets up and then just moves to the back of the room to watch instead.
Yes, I believe everyone who's a relation in the household is now assembled.
Well, those are not
doing here.
Well, as you might expect, we want to question all who might have been involved in the death of your father, Eleanor. If I may call you Eleanor, of course.
Darling,
Of course.
they need to question the help.
We need to question everyone.
Ah, yes, of course. Carry on, and you may call me Eleanor. From one lady to another.
Very kind of you, ma'am.
Don't
And I
get
think she
overly
looks-
familiar, darling.
Drink
She-
more, dear.
She looks up at Mr. Bennington, who then... I'm sorry to inform you all that I've had consults down in London, and, well, the unclear circumstances of Lord Walnut's demise means that the will be read tomorrow, not today. It's so unusual, you see. The outcome of this situation and the rights under the will are all pending an investigation. The investigation of this lady here, as events may happen. So I will stay here, and I have the will with me, but we won't be reading it until Lady Ariadne is able to draw some conclusions about the nature of Lord Walnut's demise.
Well, Surely, Mr. Bennington, there's nothing in the will that would have bearing on the exact nature of my father-in-law's death.
Well, it might do if he was killed by whomever was going to inherit, or someone that he trusted. I'm sorry, this is just the way that things are. The investigation has to be concluded before we can...
Be that as it may, Mr. Bennington, surely simply reading the document is no binding matter. We're all free to hear what's in the will, are we not?
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Hawthorne, but I must say that it is, in fact, a binding matter, and that is what I have made my profession as, a lawyer.
Perhaps I should have called my barrister in. Didn't realize this was going to be such a difficult task.
When you, Alton Hawthorne, pass beyond this mortal coil, you may call your barrister in to have your will read, or you may set whichever conditions you wish around the nature and contents of your will. However, you may not speak for your father-in-law, and I'm afraid these are the conditions that he left.
Very well.
Yes, Father, when you die, you can bully everybody as much as you please.
Chester, mind your tongue.
And I think Eleanor prods Chester with a foot. Now, dear, please be civil in front of our guest.
Well then, in that case, Mr. Bennington, Miss Oliver, proceed.
Right. Now, I have something to discuss with Ms. Lady Ariadne out in the hall. She's been observing you this morning, and we're going to confer briefly, and then we will re-enter the room, and she will make a first pronouncement as to her findings. Until then, just speak amongst yourselves. I promise we won't be but a few minutes. We'll be right back. And I think they exit the parlor room.
Eleanor pours more into her cup from the carafe.
Well, this is a goddamn mess. Eleanor, dear.
Yes?
Would you care to estimate, just give me sort of a rough figure of how many drinks you've already had this morning?
Not enough, darling. Not enough at all. I am sorry that this is not going your way. I know you had your heart set on the business.
Just because you're having a hard time, Father, with the passing of grandfather, does not mean that you should be so crude to Mother in front of the help.
Indeed. Alton, need I remind you, my father is dead.
Her father.
I'm well aware of that, Eleanor.
So...
And as to behavior in front of the help, well, we could all do with looking like a little more of a family, wouldn't you say?
That would be lying, darling. Besides, there's nothing here
Yes, and...
the help hasn't seen. Why start a charade now?
Eleanor, dear, we've been conducting a charade for quite some time, and I don't think now is the time to let it slip.
Sorry, let what slip? Lady Ariadne opens the door.
Our
Did someone
composure,
say something about a secret?
Miss Oliver. We are all obviously very distraught at the events, and it would be a shame if our composure were to slip at a time like this.
Just at that minute, a glass breaks from the back of the room, and you just hear Tansy go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's entirely my fault." She gets down
Tansy.
and is trying to pick up all the paste. It's just, it looks like it's a pretty old glass vase of some kind.
right, just
Darling,
be a
you
dear and
disturbed
sweep that
Tansy.
up.
I apologize.
Oh, lovely. The Gloucestershire Masterson vase.
She's
Is that
just
a
gathering up all the
favorite?
pieces into her apron.
It
Yes,
amazes
well,
me that you can still remember the names, Chester, darling. I'm very proud of you.
You've all put poor Tansy in a state of distress, and quite frankly, I don't care for it. This is what I was saying.
I'm sure you don't, Father. But as we all know, business is family and family is business. So let's get to it, shall we?
I better get these somewhere safe so nobody cuts themselves on it. Tansy's sort of making her way out of the room. Chester, she bumps into you just a little bit, and a note slips from her sleeve onto your book. She's like, I'll be back. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry again.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Hawthorne."
Tansy, dear. Don't worry about it.
I would like to pay a resolve token for Ariadne to have noticed that note. Excellent. So if you accept this, Tansy, you may take that resolve token from me.
I very much accept that token. Sounds
Love.
like a good time.
Indeed. Interesting. Well, I have conferred with Mr. Bennington in the hall, and I must say, although I seem to think that all of you may have something that you're not disclosing, Mr. Hawthorne, Mr. Bennington tells me that you were to be named inheritor of Lord Walnut's estate. Is that true?
Well, yes, certainly. As his son-in-law and business partner, it only stands to reason that I should inherit the business and the estate.
And so you know what the will presumably says, don't you?
Well, I should hope I do, but it would be nice if we could actually have it read.
Why the interest in having the will read, if you know what it's going to say?
Confirmation, Miss Oliver. I'm sure as a private investigator you understand that impulse.
Do you think there is a circumstance in which the will is not going to name you as executor of Lord Walnut's estate?
No, I should think not.
Glad to hear it. Nonetheless, of all of these people here today, it seems to me that you have considerable business interest and stake in Lord Walnut's will. Do you not?
Certainly, that's undeniable.
Would that not, perhaps, if he was to, I don't know, change that plan, have made you a little upset? Or at least if he had a plan to change it, would that not have made you want to, I don't know, see that document confirmed? Perhaps by Lord Walnut's loss of life?
Miss Oliver, are you seriously suggesting that I killed my own father-in-law, my mentor, with whom I have worked for 30 years, simply in order to see his last will and testament? If I wanted to see Ernest's last will and testament, I could simply walk into his study and ask.
No, my dear sir, I am suggesting that perhaps there was a plan to change said last will and testament. And if that were to disrupt your business interest, it would only be in your current interest to have the earlier plan executed.
Well, I was certainly not made aware of such a plan, and if such a plan were to be in the works, I have no doubt that Ernest would have informed me. Lord Walnut and I were close.
Close. Well, we shall see how close you were. But as it stands, it seems to me, Alton, that you, of all the people here, have the clearest motive for murder.
I don't take kindly to being accused of such a thing.
I'm going to be keeping my eye on you. But before we go any further, I think I should speak to each of you alone. There are some facts that I need to confirm about precisely what happened last night, where each of you were, and ultimately how you may or may not have been involved in what transpired.
Is this going to take long? I have plans in the afternoon.
No, it shouldn't take long, Chester. But your cooperation will be greatly appreciated.
I'm sure.
We will begin with Alton, if you don't mind.
Yes, very well. Given the accusations leveled at me, I'm eager to clear my name.
I suspect that you are. Come with me into the drawing room. Or into the adjoining room, the parlor. And she gestures out the door.
Very well. Chester, keep your mother company.
Somebody has to, Father.
And I will, of course, follow Ariadne out into the drawing room.
Moves us into the interview phase. And so how this phase works is that we have about 5 to 10 minutes a person, and we will be asking questions of this character. I will be doing so in the guise of Ariadne, but this is a collaborative effort. So each character is going to come up with a question, or each player will come up with a question that they would like to ask Alton, or have Ariadne ask Alton. So I will open the floor for questions that might be useful in terms of dredging up some information about what happened here. Does anyone wish to go first?
I mean, do you want to start and take questions in the chat?
We can do that as well. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just to keep it flowing. And
Yeah.
I would also suggest I'm talking of our private chat here on our video call, but if everybody is cool with it, I think we should
Yeah.
also take questions from public chat.
I was about to suggest
Yes.
I'd love to see what kind of questions people have already for all of us.
Yeah.
Our viewers are all beautiful, smart, intelligent people, and I'm sure they'll do better than I will.
May I make a
Yeah.
suggestion? Since we're going to need questions for everyone, if anyone in chat has a question for a particular character that they want to see asked to them, just put name of character, then your question.
Yeah.
Just so no one's not put on the spot. You can take this entire sequence to think about who you want.
Perfect. Okay, so we are going to start. Ariadne gestures to a chair. Alton, I'm sure you were surprised by my accusation. Certainly
Yes,
surprised that I consider you
say
the
I
prime
was.
suspect.
Well, I think that's not only unfair, there are some statutes that would allow me to sue for libel if you were to follow such an accusation.
Only if they prove untrue, you know.
Well,
And I intend to prove
obviously.
quite the
And-
opposite.
Well, you seem to have made up your mind then, Miss Oliver.
I will follow the facts, if you please. The facts are currently pointing in your direction, but should the facts point elsewhere, I will follow them wherever the truth leads.
Well, good. It is my full intention to ensure that the facts point in a direction other than mine, as I am completely innocent of this supposed crime.
Tell me, what were you doing last night, Alton?
Well, as you are aware, Lord Walnut had called his immediate family here to Larch Grove in order that we have a family portrait painted
Yes, the one that was slashed.
Yes, unfortunately. It's going to be a devil to repair, and the portrait isn't even complete yet. I'm quite put out about that, mind you.
Not complete? What do you mean?
Well, the artist said that she needed additional time to work on it. I don't know. Do I look like a painter to you, Miss Oliver?
No, you do not. I will say you look many things, but not
She had
a
to
painter.
stab at it for longer with a brush until it looked appropriately formal and imposing.
Sorry, Mr. Hawthorne, do you use the word stab lightly?
What can I say? The portrait was stabbed, it put me in mind of it.
Indeed. But you still have not answered the question of what you were doing last night. You deflected quite skillfully.
Well, we sat for the portrait for some time. The artist did her work and left the estate for the evening to return later today to complete the work. Of course, I was forced to telephone her and inform her that under the circumstances, the commission was, at least for the time being, on hold. We took dinner, and, well, afterwards I retired to the study with Lord Walnut for cigars and brandy.
Were you the last one to see him?
I'm not sure. As far as I'm aware, when I left him in the study that evening to... there were some documents he needed to review before he turned in. That was the last time that I saw him alive.
And you then just went to bed? Is that your assertion? And woke
yes.
up and did your normal morning routine?
Yes.
That we have already established.
Right, as you say, completely without additional event.
Indeed. Now, to go back to the matter of the will, if what you say is true and you are fully confident that Lord Walnut did not change his plan to have someone else inherit his vast sums of money, why weren't you the one to call me?
No offense to you, Miss Oliver, but if I were to conduct an investigation, I should probably go about it in somewhat of a different fashion. Your name is not unknown to me, as you have something of a reputation.
Did you read about me in the papers?
Yes. Very much so. However, I like to conduct business quietly and efficiently, and bringing in a famous lady detective who regularly makes her name in the papers isn't exactly my style, Miss Oliver.
But the thing I don't understand, and I think this is why I am confused, sir, is why, if you were set to inherit all of this man's money, why then are you so interested in the will being read now, today, immediately?
As I said, Miss Oliver, I'm a man of efficiency.
It would have nothing to do with getting the money quickly, would it?
Well, of course it would. Miss Oliver, I am saddened by Lord Hawthorne's death. He was a dear friend to me. A long-term friend, lifelong one. However, that friendship was built upon the growth of a successful business, one that doesn't stop for the death of one man. And the faster we have this business all over with, the faster that I can continue his legacy.
Indeed. Now, I want to turn this topic to another matter, and that's that of your son. Because, of course, if you were to inherit Lord Walnut's money, then presumably your darling Chester would be the next in line?
Oh, no. No. Chester, despite my best efforts, is unfit for business.
Tell me a bit about that. What is your relationship with your son like?
The boy's difficult.
Is that all you have to say?
I have tried my absolute best during his upbringing to instill in him the values of efficiency, forthrightness in business dealings, a taste for what it takes to build something difficult and complicated, and something that generates a fantastic amount of money. And he rebuffed me. He leans more towards his mother's disposition, which I must say is, at the best of times, flighty.
Flighty. Not a word that I would use, or not a word that I would expect a husband to use when describing his wife.
Well, you've, I'm sure, seen Eleanor in her state of distress, have you not?
I did, yes.
She turns to the drink easily, and when she is not turned to the drink, she becomes bored. It is the only thing that really holds her attention for long. And, to be fair, Chester as well.
And this leads you to
I sent the boy to Eton.
Eton? Is that where he picked up the Byron?
Yes, unfortunately, and not the mathematics.
I see.
Eleanor would rather baby the lad.
Tell me, Alton, this housemaid who was in the room, Tansy Templeton.
Oh, yes. Good girl.
Very good girl, it seems. Very attentive. Do you know why his lordship paid such a mind to Tansy's well-being?
Wherever did you get that idea?
Well, it seems that they were quite close. I heard tell that she was favored somewhat among the servants. And of course, she was in the room. You don't see any other of the housemaids having been called down.
Well, Tansy's very good at what she does. His lordship certainly saw that, as did I, and we make it a point, when people who work for us are good at their jobs, to reward that with attention.
So she's just good at her job. That's it?
Yes, a very good maid and nothing more.
I see. Well, thank you for your time, Alton. If you wouldn't mind sending in your son, since we were just speaking of him.
Certainly, Miss Oliver. And I do hope I've put your mind at ease about any nefarious doings.
It does seem perhaps less likely than before. But mind you, Alton Hawthorne, I still have my eye on you. Nothing escapes this gaze.
Very well. I shall fetch Chester.
See that you do.
And Alton will leave the room. Do we want to cut back to where were we gathered anyway?
Drawing
The
room.
sitting rooms?
Yeah,
Okay.
the drawing room.
Do we want to cut back to the drawing room, or are we just cutting to Chester with Ariadne?
So mechanically, we would just continue on through the interview of each character.
Okay.
But if there's something you want to see in the drawing room, we can cut back.
I can't think of anything. Unless if nobody else has anything.
All right. If someone else has something to suggest, please speak up. But if not, we will be proceeding on to Chester Walnut Hawthorne. Chester, tell me about your relationship to your grandfather.
Well, he is my mother's father, strictly speaking, and we were relatively close. Nothing too significant to speak of.
Did he favor you? Dote upon you?
Not particularly.
Why was that?
Grandfather was very old-fashioned. Had strict senses of propriety, and his relationship with my mother colored our own, if you would.
Yes, I get the sense that was very tenuous, was it not? That's why.
I can't say that it's any of my business.
But it is your business, in a sense. You are heir to his fortune. If your father wasn't in the way, that is.
I'm sure that even if Alton was not present, there would have been other accommodations found.
Other accommodations? You think your grandfather would have put someone else in the will before you?
Quite possibly.
Well, that suggests that perhaps you were not favored at all.
No, that is what I am getting at, Madame Ariadne. Sorry, I apologize. Your name is not familiar to me.
That's all right. We will work on your pronunciation later.
Yes, I'm told.
I am struck by the fact that you seem very dear to your mother, but you and your father, well, that's an altogether different relationship, isn't it?
My father sees material success as the means to a legacy to become relevant in a world that cares not for him. And I do not.
In what way?
I simply see no reason to leave what surely in time will become a shattered husk of this fine manor and a family long since gone and forgotten by memory, and have the only thing that the quaint little villagers will look at and say, oh, look, the gentry. This is where they lived. Look at the moss on the walls and the shattered columns. I would prefer to be remembered in a better light.
A more dramatic one, I would expect.
Supposition might take you so far.
I find supposition often leads to fact. Not always, but it can be a useful go-between. Tell me, are you interested in the dramatic? Big shows, displays of aggression or force or emotion?
I prefer the quiet contemplation of nature and the world around us and the beauty that lies therein. Another rift between me and grandfather.
Very romantic of you. That's the case for sure. What are your ambitions, actually?
To be remembered in a more positive light, like I said. I harbor some delusions of being a poet and an author myself. But I fear that I will never have the time to fully complete a work that will leave me. Would you like to hear some of it? It's very good.
Oh, I don't know if we have the time for that, but perhaps sometime. I would be delighted to hear your artistic prattling. I'm sorry, that perhaps was impolite.
Historically speaking, yes. Yes, it was. But
Now, you told me that last night you were gazing at the stars, what few you could see between the clouds. You know that your grandfather's body was found outside, correct? Nothing suspicious?
it was my understanding that he fell out through a window, so there's only two real options at that point, is there not?
Yes, I suppose so. Please, if you want to take over the detectiving, you think you have this thing figured out?
I'm sure that my father did it.
So you agree with my initial assessment?
I don't know why he's so obsessed with keeping the will. Finding out what's in it, if he truly was so close to grandfather and there wasn't a rift developing, and which leads me to suspect that my dear mother was in fact set to inherit.
Indeed. Well, that's certainly a possibility, and it's certainly what I thought. Although your father seemed rather more a difficult nut to crack than I had hoped. Perhaps lining up with your own feelings about him. But you didn't exactly say whether or not you saw your grandfather's body last night, did you?
I was only made aware upon my return. I stopped by the stables on my way back.
The stables?
Yes, yes.
Can anyone say that you were there at that time?
Oh, I'm sure that I must have made some small amount of noise as I visited my dearest, Quercus. He's a sickly horse, but I love him so.
Quercus. And you just wanted to check in on this horse?
Yes, he recently had a bit of a chest issue, and father was threatening to have him put down, but I talked to our stable man, and he knew a remedy that worked quite well. I'm ever so grateful.
Well, I hope that Quercus continues to improve and their health is only robust going forward. You've been very helpful, Chester, but I do want to ask about something suspicious I noticed. Just a small thing. Why did the housemaid slip a note into your book on her way out of the room?
Well, pardon? You saw that, did you?
Private eye.
Yes, it does come in the name, does it not?
Mm.
Well, that was a private message from a interested party that Tansy was ferrying to me.
Interested party? And who might said interested party be?
There's an eligible young bachelorette in a nearby estate that has put in some inroads, despite my family's lackluster reputation.
So this eligible bachelorette somehow couriered a note to the housemaid to covertly slip to you.
Yes, the flair for the dramatic runs both ways, apparently, which is one reason why I'm sure that this will be an inspired pairing.
You wouldn't mind if I took a look at the note, would you?
Oh, I'm afraid I must have already returned it to my bedroom, but I'm sure I can fetch it for you later. It's pure innocent fluff, I assure you. Nothing questionable in nature.
Well, I look forward to confirming that. Chester, could you send in Tansy, speaking of?
Ah, yes. Do be kind. The dear girl's been through quite a bit.
Of course.
Yeah, and you know how the lower class gets when they're questioned. They can be very rambunctious, but she is a gem. We're very glad to have her. And Chester goes and gets Danny and Tansy.
Yes, Mum. You needed to speak with me some more.
Yes, Tansy. Don't worry, this is not going to be a difficult interview. It's just that, sometimes the help sees things about the family, knows things about them. And, well, here I am trying to solve the murder of the patriarch of this estate. And I wonder if you might be useful in that respect.
Well, I'll do my best.
Now, if you wouldn't mind just telling me from your perspective what happened last night? Where were you? What were you doing?
Oh, well, I was turning things in for the night, Mum, like I usually do. Switching off some of the electric lights and shuttering some of the ones that still run on gas. Turning down some of the bedrooms before the family retired. My usual rounds before I went back to the servants' quarters. I think that was probably 9 or 10, if I had to guess. I don't usually time myself.
Did you see anything suspicious? Did you see Lord Walnuts before you went to bed?
No, I did not see him, no. But I did hear him.
What did you hear?
Just some angry shouting. He seemed upset about something, but I mean, I can't go up into the rooms and just barge in and ask what's going on.
Shouting? Did you hear any other familiar voices?
I was on the floor below, so I really couldn't make out much. His seemed to be one of the loudest ones in the room.
Very interesting. That is interesting indeed. Tansy, we were just discussing motives in the family. I suspect you've, as I've said, witnessed some unfiltered truth. And I'd like to hear your perspective on the members of the household. Just the Walnuts and the Hawthorns.
Look, Mum, they've been nice to me, and I really don't want to get any trouble with the family if they hear me telling stories about them.
Please, this is in full confidence, and you're protected by the law. You may say whatever you truly think.
And it's not going to get back to me?
Not
I really
at all.
like this job.
It won't. I promise you your employment cannot be dismissed on the basis of what you say to me here.
All right. Well, I'm sure you've already noticed they don't really like each other that much.
No, they are, so it seems, a bit at odds.
It's always been that way. I don't think Lady Hawthorne and Mr. Hawthorne really get along. That's a nice way of putting it, I think.
I've gathered that too, yeah.
And Mr. Hawthorne, he doesn't really like his son very much. But, these the landed folk, they move in a circle that I don't really understand that well, and I'm sure they have their reasons, but it makes things quite tense sometimes when they're all in the same place for a very long time, like right now.
Yes, there does seem to be quite a bit of dysfunction, doesn't there? Have you noticed any, or have an idea of why someone in the family might have a strained relationship with Lord Walnut, or did?
Well, not really. I'm not privy to all of the family secrets just because I work here. I hear a lot of the spats, but, sometimes it's about money, sometimes it's about certain privileges, but I don't know the history behind it. I know that Lord Walnut was always very hard on Lady Eleanor.
Yes, I get the sense that that's why she was not named in the will.
I wouldn't know anything about the will, Mom. That's above me.
That's very true, I suppose, but I do wonder, just could you tell me a little bit about why you were hired, why you were taken in?
I was a local girl needing a job, and there was an opening at the house, and Mr. Hawthorne put in a good word for me.
Mr. Hawthorne put in a good word for you. How did you know Mr. Hawthorne?
Oh, my family knew him. My dad has done some jobs for the business. Just good local, reliable folk, really. I mean, that's how most people tend to get their positions in a lot of these houses. I'm sure you know that.
Indeed, but Mr. Hawthorne is of, forgive me, a slightly higher class. I wonder how you came into contact.
Oh, my dad mentioned that I needed a job, passed it along, and then eventually it got to Mr. Hawthorne, as these things tend to do, and I had my interview here, and things went well, and here I am.
Well, Mr. Hawthorne did say you were a hard worker, so I hope
Thanks.
that maybe that showed.
I like to think I do good work.
Indeed, I from what I've seen, you certainly do. But I know you were close with Lord Walnut, and I know we've discussed this before, but there wasn't a reason why he felt closer to you than the other servants, was there?
I don't think so. I'm just myself. I say good morning. I'm always very polite to ask how his day's been. Most of the time the family isn't always here, so he doesn't have a lot of people to talk to.
That's a very good point, for sure. And sorry to press, of course. I know that this is a difficult time, but I did have a quick question. Nothing major, but I noticed that you slipped a note to Chester earlier, briefly, and I just wondered if you could tell me a little bit about what that was.
You saw that, Mum? Sorry, pardon me.
I'm a private eye.
Tansy looks around to make sure the door is shut. Mum, you asked if I had seen Lord Walnut last night, and that is, I did. I lied a little bit. I lied just a little bit. I didn't quite see him. I saw the body, though, at night under the window.
You saw the body?
I did.
Before it was found?
You have to promise me that this is not going to get back to me.
No, I promise you it won't, but dear girl, please, if you know anything more about, did you see someone with the body?
I saw Mr. Chester over the body.
You saw Chester?
And my note
sure?
was just, I think I'm sure, but the note was that I just needed to speak with him about it. I just wanted to clear it up because I'm sure there's a very good explanation, and it could just be the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, it's quite a shock. What if he was just walking past and happened to see his poor grandfather there on the ground?
Chester Walnut Hawthorne. Merely back from the stables on a cloudy night, after stargazing and looking after his horse. Interesting. Thank you, Tansy. You've been an enormous help. And don't worry, this will stay between us.
You've got to promise me, Mum. I really don't want to get on the bad side of anyone here. It's really hard to find a new position.
I promise, dear girl, I promise. Now, if you would be so kind as to send in the lady of the house. She's the last to wrap up this interview.
Oh, of course. And Tansy leaves the room. She goes, Lady Eleanor, you're wanted by Madame Ariadne.
Eleanor swans into the room, drink in hand.
Hello, Lady Eleanor. Care to sit down?
Of course. She will. Take a deep swig.
I get the sense that you and your father were not particularly close.
Well, we had an appropriate relationship between a father and a daughter. He spent most of his time worrying about the business, and I, of course, lead quite a busy and social life. Didn't leave much time for socializing with my own father, aside from the dinner table.
Even so, you would think that an appropriate relationship between a father and a daughter would involve leaving his daughter his inheritance rather than her husband.
Well, you would think, wouldn't you? But perhaps to him, given that Alton and I have such a long-running marriage, that perhaps giving the money to Alton was his way of passing it along to me.
Yes, do tell me about that, your marriage to Alton. How did you end up together? There doesn't seem to be any love lost now.
Alton, as I'm sure he must have told you time and time again, has been father's right-hand man from long before we married. In fact, I was rather young, and father thought it appropriate to marry me off to someone he knew and trusted and perhaps wouldn't take me far away from the family. And so Alton was young and ambitious and unattached. So it seemed like, at least as far as father told me, a rather fortunate match.
But not in your view.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever love him?
I was 16 at the time. My view did not matter.
And you didn't grow to love him over time?
I've been trying, but it's quite difficult to truly love a man who believes business is family and family is business.
I've heard that, yes. I can see where your frustration might come from.
I'm sure it's a frustration shared by many a woman in my position, but that's what we have my darling Jin and parties for.
But you do have a son together, and I'm sure your son is important to you. What do you hope for Chester?
My hope for Chester is that he has the freedom to be exactly who he wants to be.
And what does that entail?
Well, that's for Chester to decide. I know his father wouldn't love me saying that, and of course my father wouldn't either, but I think Chester deserves to dream and have a chance to make strides towards them.
Indeed. And if anything were to get in the way of that, if Chester were to, I don't know, commit a crime, what would you do?
That boy, he's just so sweet. And he takes such good care of his mama. I can't imagine him committing any sort of crime. He's not the one in our family with large ambitions.
But you don't think that he is torn in his allegiance between you and his father, or certainly in his ambition? If I was a boy of his age, I would feel put out that my father was getting all of the money that should be mine by right.
Well,
wouldn't you say?
Perhaps, but I also think Chester dreams of things larger than money, and besides, he knows that I was there, and I would do what I have been doing for Chester's whole life, which is try to convince Alton to give the boy some leeway. Chester was not going to go wanting as long as I was here.
Do you think there might be a circumstance in which Chester would have seen, perhaps mistakenly, your father is an obstacle to your happiness.
I mean, if Chester were to try to remove an obstacle to my happiness, I truly doubt his target would have been my father.
Now, I've heard tell that last evening there was shouting. Did you hear any shouting late into the night?
Must not have been particularly loud shouting, for it didn't wake me up from my gin-induced slumber. I was in the parlor, after all.
Indeed. And some people saw you there, I take it? You have some witnesses?
I'm sure anybody walking by would not have been surprised to see me there, just between us.
Indeed. Be that as it may, to go back to your husband briefly.
Yes.
You know that I suspected him, certainly initially, of Lord Walnut's death, particularly if your father had changed his mind about his inheritance. What do you think Alton wants?
Alton wants the business. The business is his way to fame and notoriety. Of course, I'm sure you've noticed that Alton's the only one who doesn't have a title.
Yes.
But if he can't have the title, perhaps he can have the business. And so, do I think it possible for Alton to have snapped upon learning of a change in the will? I wouldn't expect it, but I also wouldn't entirely be surprised if something were to come in the middle of that man and his ambitions, whether it were his wife, his son, or his father-in-law.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. That's very illuminating.
Of course. Now, if you don't mind, I have to go refresh my drink.
Please do. We shall see each other again soon, I expect.
I'm sure we will.
And she holds the door for Lady Eleanor. All right, so this concludes our interview phase. We will next be moving into the epistolary phase, where as everyone goes to sleep for another night at Larch Grove, you will have the chance to send any notes that you may wish, slipped under doors, left on pillows, to anyone that you may so choose. So be thinking about that, because that's where we'll pick up coming back from break. Well, where we last left this dysfunctional family, we were about to turn in for the night after some very revelatory interviews. And so moving into the epistolary phases, this is where it's been a long day of investigating and interviewing, and the characters are turning in for the evening. So the epistolary phase is taking place between the fall of night and the early hours of dawn. None of these letters are official letters sent by post the way it would be in normal good society, but rather these are slipped under doors, left on mattresses, delivered by a servant who are well paid for their discretion, that kind of thing. As always, each player may send up to 2 messages during the epistolary phase, and if you would like to request a letter from a specific character, you may spend a resolve token to do so. So with that, I will open the floor. Who has a letter to send?
I can start. Is that
Go
good?
for it.
Yes. All right. Tansy, I think, tell me about your quarters briefly. Do you room with other servants, or are you for some reason afforded your own small garret?
I think that since she's not technically the head housekeeper yet, she definitely has at least one bunkmate in the servants' quarters, if we're being historically accurate.
Great. Okay, so I think your roommate probably notices, hears a note slipped under the door and excitedly brings it over to you just as you're about to turn in for bed. You know, you've washed your face, you're in your nightgown, and while she is very excited to know who has passed you a note, I think upon opening it, you will be less than ready to divulge that. So, you read, My dear Tansy, as this note does not exactly befit our relationship nor your position, but I felt it was completely necessary given the circumstances. The unfortunate death of my father-in-law has put us in something of a precarious situation regarding our discussion yesterday evening. I would greatly appreciate it if, as I said to you last night, you would disregard all of this nonsense that you've gotten into your head and go about your duty as you should. I made a promise to Lord Walnut that I would continue to provide for you for the rest of your days, and I intend to make good on it. Lord Walnut was nothing but kind to you. Nothing but kind. I intend to carry on that proud family tradition. My only request is that you remain discreet in your disclosures, especially given that we have someone poking about the house into the family business. I know as well as you do that the information that we discussed in regards to your parentage yesterday evening has nothing to do with the death of Ernest Walnut. And therefore, I would ask your discretion, and that, given what you know, you take it upon yourself, as I have, to protect the family name. I give you my absolute assurance, regardless of the changes to the will that were made last week, your position and your livelihood are secure. I absolutely assure it. Please, Tansy, be a good girl. Forget all this nonsense and keep it close to your chest. Yours, A.
Tansy, as she's reading the note, just as she finishes it, just crumples it up.
Beautiful. Love it. All right. Who else has a letter or a covert note they would like to send on its merry way?
So I think we see this being penned. I like at first, like the shot kind of zooms in on the fountain pen and kind of this kind of overly expensive paper for this kind of note, but here we are. And this is like some nice like send a letter for business thing. In fact, it probably has scribbled out from the desk of Alton Hawthorne at the top. This is business. This is expensive business paper. My dearest Rufus.
My stationery!
my dearest Rufus, there may be sudden and unexpected changes. Should the reading of the will go in a way that is detrimental to my interests, there is a chance that we will need to leave with haste. Should you choose to, and still follow through with your desire for another life in a different land. But we will need to do it swiftly, for there may be some degree of concern and drama left behind in the dust of our departure. Yours, always and forever, Chester. And it's folded up, and you watch as it get folded up, and then Chester tucks it into a pocket and sneaks out to the stables and slides it underneath the door of the stableman's quarters.
Ah, Quercus. I see.
No, Quercus is the horse.
I know.
Okay.
I'm saying all of that was a ruse. Well, maybe not.
'Twas a ruse.
Quercus was a red horse herring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, as you do. Amazing. Lovely. Other letters?
Yes. In the morning, which is, well, actually, whenever Alton goes into his study, and when he goes to reach for paper, he will see a folded note card. It's probably the back of some sort of invitation to some social event, but scrawled on it, you'll see it say, "Dearest Alton, I do not know what you have been up to, but do try to keep the ruckus down with whatever trollop it is you must be with. I heard loud noises from your study last night, and from the lady detective's questions, I was not the only one. Also, I highly request that you reconsider your position on our dear Chester. The boy does not deserve your scorn. I have given up so much for fathers and your wishes. Please at least do this for me." And there's just an E on it.
Interesting. Curiouser and curiouser.
I think Eleanor gets a letter late in the night as well, slipped under the door. Perhaps you are still up. Perhaps you find it in the morning when you're stumbling around, waiting for your first glass of gin to wake you up. And
yes,
it is
gin.
it is short, but it is in shockingly fine script. You do not recognize it at all. And it just goes, "Lady Eleanor, it has come to my attention that your husband is lying to you, most egregiously, in fact. Why don't you inquire with him about the whereabouts of your missing child? Do you not care? Have you ever wondered? Is there an ounce of any maternal instinct still left in that decrepit, decaying, drunken, slovenly body of yours? I suggest you ask your questions while you can, while you still have a family left to ask them of." And it's left unsigned.
Damn!
Spicy!
Lots of stuff happening in letters here, kids. Lots of stuff. Amazing. Do we have any additional letters we wish to send? I think that's been once for everyone. So if anyone else has anything they would like to have sent, you each have one more, but it is not a requirement.
I would
All
like
good.
to pen a letter, but leave it unsent.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, go for it.
Yes. So you see, we cut back in time to before this finer stationery had been scribbled out. We jump back, flashback, motherfuckers, and you see Chester scrawling in a much smaller note in rougher, coarser paper. There is a possibility that I will be departing, depending on the outcome of these many things. But there is more evidence, should it be desired or necessary. I have left it in the attic, beneath the floorboard by the stained glass window of the grazing deer. Use it as you see fit. See. that is folded up into a small brown paper envelope, and left in what I'm gonna say is a book that has been used previously as a drop, as a stealthy drop point.
Ooh, I like this. Oof, nice. Now I think, for my part, all of you receive an identical note individually that says, I know you had a hand in this. If you know what's good for you, you'll come clean before the truth is extracted from you. If you wish to confess, I shall take residence in Lord Walnut's study in the afternoon before the will is read. Should you have anything you wish to say, you may find me there. And it is signed Lady Ariadne. Okay, any last letters? All right, then we shall move into our second and final novel chapter phase. So a new cold November morning dawns. This time I think it is cloudy. The sun is not shining. Things are appropriately somber. This is a series of visitations for those keeping track mechanically, and each player has the opportunity, if they wish, to frame one scene they would like to see before the final confrontation takes place later this afternoon. So does anybody want to visit another character on the back of a letter they may have sent or received?
Yes. Eleanor would
Figured.
like to visit her delightfully dear husband, Alton.
And I think importantly, like in classic frigid aristocracy style, like they don't even have bedrooms in the same part of the house.
Of course not. That would be gauche.
No. They have to cross the house to one another, as you do.
So it's probably, I would say, mid-morning. Eleanor has woken up, found this note, worked herself up into a frenzy, had a couple of drinks, liquid courage, it's a thing, and has just slams open the door to Alton's study.
Yep, and you see him in there, bent over some very important papers, fully dressed in suit and tie, early in the morning, and he sort of as you slam open the door, removes his reading glasses. Eleanor, dear?
What did you do?
Well, you made it very clear in your note what you think I did. There's a lot of accusations flying around in this house lately, and quite frankly, I don't care for any of them.
I don't care what you care about. What did you do with my child?
Excuse me?
Oh, don't play coy now. Isn't the child the entire reason why we even married in the first place? My child, the one that was stripped from me at the moment of birth and carted off to God knows where to die, is apparently alive and deriding my maternal instincts. What did you do?
And I fold the reading glasses and put them into their case. How did you find out? He's dead.
She slams the letter in front of him. The note, the one she received.
I told her not to. I explicitly
Her?
told her not to.
I have a daughter?
Yes, Eleanor. You have a daughter. When your father and I discovered that you were with child after your scandalous dalliance with... Who was it? Stable boy? Driver? One of the valets?
Whoever it was, it never would have been good enough for you or father, so why does it matter?
Well, we never found out, so whoever it was went unpunished.
Well, I didn't, did I?
Though I suspect, given the ages of the remaining staff and the gender disposition, that that person is no longer with us, which is just as well. In any event, a girl of 16, unwed, the lone daughter of a prominent business family, the daughter of a lord, no less, with child. Well, you were there. You know the scandal that would have ensued. So, your father and I talked it over, and when the child was born, we spirited her away to the local village. There's a good, hearty family there who were willing to take her in, thank God. And we made it our business, as something of a walnut, that child should be looked after and cared for.
But not in her own home. You could have called her your own, if you were so worried about her upbringing. You took her away from me without my say in the matter.
I could have. Eleanor. You've never understood. The reputation of the family was at stake.
It's not your family.
It's just as much my family as it is yours. More so, even.
Based on the will, why did you not hear what father had to say? He
Based on everything that I have done for this family. Dash the will to hell! Everything that I have done in my business and in my life has been for the benefit of the well-being and reputation of this family. And you needn't worry about your daughter not being under her own roof. She's here, and she's been here. It's Tansy, damn it!
You brought my own child into this house and didn't bother to tell me.
Well, look at how you're reacting now.
Oh, I am distressed that my child has been under this roof and thinks I'm a terrible mother and I didn't even know she existed. Yes! I'm upset.
Would and only you, cause trouble, Mr. Eleanor.
If you care so much about family, then why are you so quick to cut Chester from his inheritance? Is he not family? Is he not your own flesh and blood? Does he not deserve his birthright?
I tried to present it to him. He wouldn't take it. I
Under
tried.
What conditions?
Under the
stole
conditions...
my childhood and my child from me. What did you want from Chester?
I wanted him to take up the business. I wanted him to represent the family well. I wanted all of us to do that, and... well, it hasn't turned out the way I expected.
Yes, you have all the money in the world coming to you and a home full of people who hate you. I hope that's some solace at the end of the night when she's gonna walk out.
Beautiful. Glad we finally got that cleared up.
Ooh, David, was that fun? Just yelling at each other?
Well done.
I adore all of you.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Lovely. Any other scenes we want to see?
Could we have a poetry reading?
Does someone want to spend a monologue?
Can we have Can we please just see a monologue of Chester?
It's time.
Writing his mean bad poem about his dad.
Oh no. It's him performing it to nature herself in the gazebo.
Yes. We return to the gazebo.
Beautiful. Now, whoever wishes to offer their monologue token gets to ask or sort of dictate the contents, or at least ask for something or a question that the monologue is oriented around. So who would like to proffer their monologue token?
I will proffer a monologue token to Chester and say, "Burn him, darling."
Oh my god. Okay. Well, this is the fun part where we watch Hopper, who is A, not a poet, B, has not prepared for any of this, and C, is about to have a whole lot of fun with, I'm gonna try to do bad poetry? So we, the scene is set, the gazebo with its stone walls, its excellent acoustics. There's small birds twittering, and we cut to Chester leaning against the wall and speaking out to the world as if it's just desperate to hear what his little fucking what is going on in his little brain. A lost salamander, trapped between a sea of liquid amber and a towering monolith, sits tranquil in the night against a velvety, star-studded sky, the likes of black currant or the darkest of racing horses as it tramples across the hopes and dreams of the many. The heaving haunches and sweaty fur speak of the endless tedium of the night that will not end and the dawn that will not come. Do I have to do more?
Can't wait for the
I requested
one.
that
Bravo.
Alton specifically be ripped apart.
Oh yes, you need to do a verse about your father.
The monolith so stalwart and empty crumbles to reveal nothing but hollow, sad tears that flood the world with the most painful of remorse as the gallant stallion runs away along the endless black beach beneath the black current sky.
With all those stars that are hidden behind clouds.
Yes.
I love that you really got into the teenage black on black on black on black.
I love
So
it.
good. So
you.
good.
Beautiful.
It was emo before emo, yo.
Yeah.
I threw in a little bit of horse girl in there.
I loved it. I mean, your mama was a horse girl. Chester's a horse girl. The Walnuts are horse girls.
Look, stable boys. Am I right?
You're right.
Yes. I'm sure Rufus would have loved that rendition. You know.
I think that he has no taste and is wildly supportive, which is part of why that relationship works.
Beautiful.
He's just happy to be here.
He's just happy to be.
Amazing. That aside, other scenes we want to see before we have the reading of the will this afternoon.
I think Tansy is going to make the drop and at the very least go up to the attic. This can be super short. What does she find?
There is a series of documents that have been copied over, and they are bound in an oilcloth, like kind of a wrapped oilcloth document case, intended to prevent any sort of damage, documenting birth and a agreement between Tansy's father and one Alton Hawthorne. To take ward of this child and to never, ever, ever tell her where she is from or who her parents really are. It is the full documentation that has been that I think that you see is this has been. You can see that some of the lettering is in Chester's hand. This has clearly been copied pretty perfectly. And there's a couple notations about there's a couple notations about damaged documents and some rodent damage, and that like it would be impractical to replicate that, but I'm sure you understand. And also, like on one of the back, he's definitely half-heartedly scribbled a poem on one of the back of them by accident. It's not good.
Tansy looks at the poems and then puts everything back in the binding and puts it exactly where she found it, knowing that it's safe up here, and the only person who knows about it is you.
We have evidence, everyone, entering into the chat. Amazing. Delightful. All right. Anything else anyone wants to see, do, speak to anyone? Or are we good to move on to the will?
Let's get to that will.
Yeah.
All right.
Get to that will.
Okay, so we are gathering in the drawing room at the bequest of Mr. Bennington, who has decided that it is now time for him to disclose what is in the will to those assembled. He realizes that Ariadne has not yet completed her investigation, but the two have discussed behind closed doors, and they think that the family should know what is in the contents of Lord Walnut's will. Now, before we have this scene, I will remind you that if anyone wishes to spend a resolve token to influence the contents of Lord Walnut's will, please do so now.
I want to spend a resolve token that at the very least, Alton isn't getting anything.
Interesting. Do you want to spend that resolve token in terms of that being in the will itself, or in terms of the narrative?
It's what would be the difference? It's just an omission?
Right. Ultimately, like, if in the legal document it says Alton gets everything, that doesn't necessarily mean that has to be the way it goes in the story for one reason or another. But if you want it to be that the will was changed such that Alton is no longer in the will.
Well, since I'm giving this resolve token to David, I would welcome maybe perhaps his input. Is it narrative or the will? Would that influence if you would take it?
I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what do we think is better? Honestly, like, what does the group think is more interesting?
I think it's more interesting if nobody is written in this will. I think it's more interesting if old man was like, "Now fuck all y'all."
No, wait, hold on. I want to. Okay, so I will accept that token for Alton to not be in the will. I want to spend 2 resolve tokens. I got 3 now. I'm going to throw them out left and right. I would like to spend 1 that none of the Walnut Hawthorns are mentioned in the will. And I would like to spend a 2nd resolve token. The only person mentioned in the will is Tansy Templeton.
All right.
Okay. So I think this will sort of, resolve token wise, will go into the ether, one of yours, because it really addresses everybody. But that means that everyone has to agree that everyone is being written out of the will except for Tansy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll like I said, I got 3. I'll spend 1 for Eleanor, I'll spend 1 for Chester, and I'll spend 1 for Tansy.
I would like to spend a resolve token. I think my only one.
This is fun.
To specifically, and I guess this is also Alton. Everybody else is being written out of the will because Lord Chestnut is
Walnut.
What's it?
Walnut.
Oh, sorry, Lord Walnut was.
Get your nuts in order.
Look,
Lord.
We're all
Almond.
nuts here. Lord Almond Milk. Because he was like conservative, and I think everybody else is basically a big pile of sins. And I think that I think this becomes a very weird, gross, and slightly biblical thing. And I think that Alton did something specifically besides being a greedy git to upset
Yeah.
Lord Walnut.
Ooh.
Interesting. Alton, how do we feel about that? And do you want to try to say what that is?
Okay, wait, hold on. Back up. Run this by me again.
I'm doubling down on what you just did, but you specifically did something to get written out of the will that would upset an old
okay.
conservative dickhead.
Yeah. What would Alton do? Because Alton is also like, Alton has a stick up his ass, the like, the height of a flagpole. What would he have done? I think here's what I here's what do you have something?
No, you go first.
I was gonna say maybe given the scene that Alton and Eleanor just had, maybe Lord Walnut recanted his abandonment of like their whole plan with Tansy, and he and Hawthorne had a discussion about it, and Hawthorne wouldn't hear any of it and insisted, we made the plan, we gotta stick to it, this is the only way to preserve the family's honor. And Walnut was like, no, I've thought about this for years, it's been gnawing at my conscience, I did wrong by my daughter, I did wrong by my granddaughter, and I can't live with that anymore.
Interesting.
Oh, man.
Okay.
You bastard.
Inject all the feels, because that's what we do
great.
here at Flights of Fandom. Okay, so all the resolve tokens changing hands. We have Tansy is the only one mentioned in the will. Everyone else has been written out of the will, and Alton explicitly has been written out of the will for something that Alton knows about, but the others don't, in relation to his knowledge of Tansy and Lord Walnut's relationship, and Lord Walnut changing his mind about that. Yes, we got all the resolve tokens straight. All right, let's play it out. So we have everyone gathered in the drawing room, and Lord Bennington takes out an envelope and says, well, I guess there's no reason to stave off the inevitable. This is the first time that this has been opened since the will has been written. He slices it with
I think Alton is drinking at this point.
Oh yeah, Eleanor
already.
is too. Eleanor doesn't expect to be in this will.
And just gives a, let's just get this over with.
I think
Alton gets it all. We all know.
Ariadne is watching with a kind of calculated interest. And as Mr. Bennington opens the will, he unfolds it. This will is the current last will and testament of Lord Ernest Walnut. It is dated as of 6 days ago. This, my last will and testament, hereby bequeaths everything which I own to Tansy Templeton. Furthermore, I would like to specify that under no circumstances should any other member of my immediate family have any claim upon my estate, especially Alton Hawthorne.
Oh,
I'm ruined.
what did you do, husband, darling?
I'm ruined!
Mr. Bennington looks up. I imagine this may come as quite a shock to many of you. But I will note that this is all pending the final examination and execution of Lady Ariadne's investigation. But this is what Lord Walnut wished. And it's what legally will be done on my honor as a lawyer.
Well, you've already made it perfectly clear that you think I killed the old man. So why don't you just haul me off to prison? I've got nothing!
I think Ariadne pipes up, not to make a bad situation more difficult for you, but this would be evidence of what I had suggested earlier, would it not? That you, knowing that the will had been changed, murdered Lord Ernest Walnut in a fit of rage in cold blood in hopes that maybe he had not yet changed the will, or somehow you would be able to stake claim upon his money another way.
Oh, damn it all. Woman, don't you see? He left it all to her! He left it all to Tansy! And I damn well know why. Well, we all know, don't we, at this point? She's his granddaughter. I've hidden this secret for years.
I'm sorry.
And it's all come apart at the seams.
What?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, someone in this room found out after I did. I found it this morning.
You?
What a
And-
surprise.
She's Eleanor's daughter. And not by me. We had a fight. The old man and I insisted that we had made the right choice, that we had to go through with what we started when the child was born. I don't know what happened to him in his old age, but Ernest, he had a change of heart. Said he'd done wrong by his daughter and his granddaughter. And when I insisted that he keep everything intact, I didn't think he'd go this far. But he made it clear that those were not his wishes.
You told me never to tell anyone in this family, let alone Lord Walnut, and all this time, he...
And you didn't listen to a word I said, girl!
You didn't tell me that he regretted it. That he
Tell me he-
wanted me.
Is it truly regret if he can't regret it enough to include his daughter in his will? One must wonder. But it's all right, Tansy dear. You've suffered enough
Don't
for
call
this
me that.
family.
I tried to protect everyone. And it all turned into a shambles around me.
The question, I think, of the hour, Mr. Hawthorne, is how far exactly did you go to protect everyone?
Also, who exactly did you protect during all of this? Because it certainly wasn't me or Mother. And it certainly wasn't Tansy. It sounds
Yes,
like
it
you were
was,
trying-
you ungrateful boy.
Oh, yes. I feel so protected. I was never going to get anything, thanks to your meddling.
If everyone had just kept their mouths shut. But it's too late now. Miss Oliver, I did not murder Ernest Walnut. But for all the good it'll do me, I damn might as well have. If someone else here did it, I'm willing to take the fall for it. It's the last thing I can do to protect my family.
Oh, please. How self-righteous can you possibly be?
I'm sorry.
Well, what, Chester? Are you confessing to something?
Absolutely
Did you
not.
kill the old man?
No. I had no reason to. I was never going to get anything. No. You're obviously trying to cover up your murder once you found out that you wouldn't be getting anything by murdering him.
And yet, Mr. Walnut Hawthorne, you were seen standing over your grandfather's body by the little light of the moon shining through a tiny patch of uncovered, clouded stars.
Well,
Care to
were you
explain?
now? That's
I-
interesting, boy.
I saw no such thing, and I was not present for any such thing. And anybody who says they saw that is a liar.
I don't think I'm a liar.
Oh,
I saw you I did. Over the body.
I will confess that I found grandfather amidst the bushes and the leaves below a broken window on my return from visiting Quercus, and he was dying. He did not choose to say anything to me, and I saw no reason to mention it.
You saw no reason to mention it when there is a private investigator in your home investigating the death of your grandfather.
It looks incredibly suspicious.
Do you not think that it doesn't look more suspicious that this information had to be uncovered as opposed to you coming forward with it?
Well, I'm sure my father has a reason for why I'm responsible for that too.
I'm curious. Of all of you dysfunctional lot, I want to know what each of you thinks. What do you think happened to Lord Ernest Walnut? We'll start with you, Chester. Why not? If not you, then whom?
The only person that stands to gain. My father.
And
who
yet
seeks
he
nothing but money. Always.
Self-righteously said he would take the fall and go to prison even though it wasn't him.
A clever ploy.
And I damn well mean it!
Yes, you mean a lot of things. I'm sure that you're very sincere in your noble sacrifice. Get over yourself, old man.
So the son believes it's his father. I wonder what the mother thinks. Eleanor?
Well, as everyone here has told you, I never was a part of Father's will. Regret though he claimed to have. So there was nothing for me in any of this, was there, ever?
Yes, clearly my mother is innocent. You have your culprit, the obvious culprit, right there.
I will tell you, Chester, 9 times out of 10, when a case has an obvious culprit, it is not the obvious culprit. It seems very convenient to me that Eleanor Walnut Hawthorne just happened to be in her cups so much for this entire event that she was not present. Possible, certainly. But doth the sun protest too much? Eleanor, you think it is your husband as well?
I think only he had something to gain from grandfather's death, unless, of course, somehow miraculously, poor Tansy found out the contents of the will and decided to take matters in her own hand. But I wouldn't accuse my own child of something like that. I haven't even had a chance to know her.
You know, it's so deeply like all of you to just sit here and lay the blame on each other. I've watched you for years doing that. And so now that I'm officially a member of the family thanks to this will, suddenly I'm included in this. Well, Tansy goes over to the carafe that she always serves and takes a glass and sort of slams it down and pours one for herself. I've always wondered how good this gin actually was, you know. She takes a sip. I don't think I like gin. I didn't know anything about what was in that will. Where would I have seen it? How would I have even known to go looking for it? But I understand. I'm the easiest target.
I don't think it's you. I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense for it to be you. So it has to be Alton.
And that's one of your little backhanded ways of getting the attention off of you like you always do, Mother.
It was quite a letter you chose to write to a girl who had all choices taken away from her at the age of 16.
No, you didn't even bother looking for me, did you?
Had to be let out of the house for that. Besides, I was told to expect you would have died.
You drank yourself into a stupor. You didn't even bother.
It's
That's-
okay. I take your blame.
Tansy,
Blame myself enough.
that is unfair. Mother has been under a great deal of duress for many years. Look at the man she puts up with, and grandfather to boot.
Am I expected to care about that? Suddenly, because now I'm part of this family. I'm supposed to care about all of these people that look down on me. Tansy, take care of this. Oh, Tansy, would you be a dear and move this giant chassé lounge chair out back and forth to this massive gazebo every time I want to read poetry to the trees at night? I don't think so. I don't have to play nice with all of you anymore. You're all horrible people. You have no idea how long I've wanted to tell you all that.
Tansy,
I already knew.
I would like to offer a resolve token to you.
Sure.
How would you feel about Lady Christie having noticed, upon examination of the body, an air of almonds in the breath of Ernest? Well, not the breath, but
It
around
was
the
Lord
mouth.
Almond Milk.
An air of almonds around
The air of almonds. That's our sequel.
Almond of the walnut?
the almond
Yeah.
and the
Almond
walnut.
in
The heir
New
to the
episode
almond
title.
milk fortune. God damn it! It all makes
The-
sense.
The almond and the walnut is
The almond and the walnut.
Yes, I will happily take it.
Lovely. And for those unfamiliar in the Christie verse, this happens frequently, or in some of her mystery stories. The air of almonds often is indicative of cyanide. Fun fact. Tansy, you had access to Lord Walnut's food, drink.
Oh, some of it, sure. The ones that I'm serving.
And you also have access to noxious chemicals, cleaning supplies, things of that nature. You wouldn't happen to
Yes.
know how cyanide might have found its way into Lord Walnut's drink?
I don't know how any of that stuff works, Mum. I just serve what I'm given.
So
I
you-
imagine if any of the enterprising young people here got their hands on some and put it in the drinks, that'd be relatively easy for them to do. I would think I'm a very easy fall girl. I'm the one that brings them in. Are you
Hmm.
saying that that's what killed him?
I'm saying that it could have.
But he fell from a window. I saw his body.
My dear girl, a fall from a single story. Enough to injure, to maim, certainly. Enough to kill. Questionable. One cannot rule out these possibilities.
I didn't kill Lord Walnut. I didn't even think I'd be included in the will. I thought that they were just going to keep me on forever.
And do you agree with Eleanor and Chester? Do you think it is Alton Hawthorne angry that he didn't receive what he was owed?
I think it could be him, sure. Well, I also think it could be Chester. I also think it could be Eleanor.
Really? Eleanor hasn't been bandied about much.
All three of you just... You're at each other's throats all the time. It's a miracle you're still alive.
Indeed.
And yet, only one of us stood to gain if grandfather died. It wasn't you, wasn't me, it wasn't mother, clearly.
Look, Chester, you did me a favor. You're the one that even told me about my birth documents to begin with. But you're still part of this screwed up family. And I'm not sure entirely what you're capable of either.
Tansy, darling.
Don't call me darling.
Oh, fine. Tansy, dearest. You too are capable of more than you let on.
What, a couple threatening letters?
She will show Lady Ariadne the letter. With that being said, I only think you were upset. I certainly don't think you murdered my father. I think that's Alton.
If you'll notice, that letter's addressed to you and not Lord Walnut.
Yes, and I never said I thought you killed him, did I?
I think something changes in Ariadne's gaze at that. She's noticed something. But she doesn't say it. Well, it seems that you all have somewhat clear views on who the murderer must be. But you'll find that I'm the consummate professional here. And after all, it is my job to render a verdict so that Lord Walnut's will can be carried out. And I suppose that I must declare my suspicion. And with that, we move into the ending. Mechanically, the way this works is that we all decide what happens. Basically, each major character gets one vote, or each player gets one vote. The options, there are 4 possible outcomes. One is that it's a natural death. In this case, Lady Ariadne will give the professional opinion that Lord Walnut did die from a fall, and that ultimately that was what killed him. And as to why he may have fallen from the window, she will declare that it's unsuspicious that either he decided to jump out himself or that he fell by accident and it was the fall that ultimately killed him. The second option is someone confesses, that a major character will confess to the murder regardless of whether they killed him or not. Here's looking at you, Alton. The third option is that Lady Ariadne will accuse the murderer. And so Lady Ariadne cracks the case and identifies the correct murderer in front of the lawyer and everyone else. And then the last option, Lady Ariadne accuses someone else other than the actual murderer, and that person goes to prison. So to start off, is there anyone that anyone wants to exclude as a possibility from being implicated in the crime and isn't comfortable with one of these options? No? All good?
Game.
I mean, I want to exclude Tansy
Okay.
specifically.
All right. Cool. So in that case, we will not have Tansy be the murderer.
Wait, can we vote to exclude someone?
You're voted off the island.
Yes, you can. You can vote to exclude someone if you don't feel comfortable with it or you don't think it's narratively interesting.
No, I know what I want to happen.
I want to vote for option 4.
Someone else.
Is that, yes, I would like an innocent Alton to be arrested due to evidence found in his office. Because Alton needs to burn. But we all know he's innocent as he is taken away.
Well, he's claimed innocence.
I know, but maybe we have like if he does get carted away, maybe we have like a post, like an epilogue scene where you know what I mean?
Eyebrows.
I'm partial
we
to
will
the
also take
accusation.
input from chat, by the way.
Yes.
Like,
Yes, please
Chat
vote.
is also happy to weigh
if you
in
have,
if they wish.
if you're watching and you have an opinion, like, let us know. We'll bring
Depending
that
on
in
what
as well.
happens, I definitely have a monologue that this angsty ass bitch would love to give.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's real good, and I've been sitting on it for a while.
I It's so funny because we're all voting for different things. I like the idea of Ariadne accusing someone who didn't do it, but my dealer's choice for you, Marissa.
I think it's more interesting if something exonerates Alden personally.
Yeah. You
But
know,
that's mostly because
besides being innocent.
Here's are we ready to pitch things?
Well,
Because
we'll give Chad a
so
second.
we
because they're on
currently
slight
have
lag.
we currently have 2 votes for someone else is arrested, and if that's what we want to go with, we can talk among ourselves about who we want that person to be, excluding Tansy because we've said we don't want it to be Tansy. But I guess the question is, does someone else prefer like arresting the actual murderer, someone confessing, or natural death? And if not, then we can just get into the weeds of someone else is arrested.
Chat is asking that if Lady Ariadne accuses an innocent person, is it a la Perot?
Oh,
Where she
That is
knows
interesting.
the actual person and is deliberately protecting them.
I love that.
Mhm.
I love that.
Well, so I think, yes, Lady Ariadne clocked something, and I had this exact thought. So thank you, Calais, for following. Yes, this was sort of what I had thought about her deliberately keeping quiet. Like she noticed a certain dynamic in something Tansy said and is not going to mention something about it. So that's an instinct if we want to go that direction.
Okay, I like that.
Now, if we want to go with that, then the question is, Lady Christie's, or in this case, Lady Ariadne is going to accuse someone who didn't actually commit the murder. Who should it be? I think from her perspective, she could see it be Chester because of this kind of evidence. She believes Tansy when Tansy said, I saw Chester standing over the body. But she has doubts if that's what she ends up declaring because of aforementioned dynamic.
We could flip a coin.
Flip a coin. Who
Ooh, I
might
like
have
it.
a
Next
coin
week.
at this table?
I have a lot of dice.
That's next week. Spoilers. I don't have a coin.
What? Why would you have a coin?
What do you want?
It's
Okay.
not for next week at all.
What?
Do we want to say?
I haven't gotten good at this yet.
All right, Chester. I'm gonna put this to you. Do you want to be heads or tails?
Well, technically, they're both. I'll
I
take
mean-
black, thank you.
Full.
I'll take
Say
charred.
tails.
Hmm?
Don't be
Taking
extra.
card.
Did you not listen to my really good poetry?
I did.
Black on black, baby.
I'm your mother.
Alright,
Of course
Tail-
I did.
It's
Tails
like-
for you.
How much
All right,
more
we gotta wrap
black
this up, y'all.
can it be?
Yes.
Like the darkest of
Who
nights.
is
like the deepest
What are-
depths of my grief.
Chester is burnt.
I'm
Right,
yeah,
and then
right.
Alton is the other case, unless we want to accuse Eleanor. But
Who is
your
it?
lucky day, Chester.
it is
Not you.
Alton. Okay. Is everyone happy with this outcome? We are accusing Alton of murder.
Alton
right.
did not commit murder, but he committed a lot of crimes. He's now
Let's
paying for.
proceed.
Okay.
Alton did nothing illegal at any point.
Very true. Sadly.
Lady Christie looks around the room, her eyes lingering slightly on Tansy and resting briefly on Chester as well before moving back to Alton. It is my professional opinion that my initial instinct was correct, and that perhaps Alton Hawthorne doth protest too much. After all, the will is hard to refute. The fact that it was changed 6 days ago to explicitly exclude Alton Hawthorne is, well, it's near damning. And I'm sorry, I just do not see another outcome. It can only be Alton Hawthorne. And that is my evidence. That is my conclusion.
Very well. I'm a shell of a man. I'm ready to face my fate.
As if that's news.
And I think As Mr. Bennington shuffles papers and is sort of preparing everything to happen, Alton, how are you facing the arrest? Are you resisting? Are you quietly submitting?
Absolute British stoicism.
Is there like a constable?
I think the constable
Funny hat?
is called. Yes, the constable is called. But I imagine it's not. If British stoicism is the approach, then I think the constable has a nice chat with Alton, and Alton sort of agrees to go quietly.
I don't think Alton says a damn word. I think he just the constable is called. Alton presents his wrists for the cuffs, and
as
just
the cuffs
in
are being
total
clicked,
silence
may I
allows
monologue?
himself to be let out.
I'll give you a monologue token.
I really want to.
yes,
I've been sitting on
Yeah,
the phone.
I got a
You've
monologue
technically
token. I'll give you a
already-
monologue token.
You've technically already monologued, but I'll allow it.
I
Go
was
ahead.
made to do that.
No one else has monologued, I will point out, but
Yeah,
Go
well,
ahead,
I
do
made a
it.
poet, so.
I made some speeches.
Father.
Yes.
Before we part ways, I know you have made a great deal of jest and mockery over my love of the written word, and the beauty that is found therein. Are you familiar with Ozymandias by Shelley? It's a few decades old, so it might be before your time.
I went to school, boy. I know it.
Then you know how relevant it is to you. If I might. And Chester definitely recites this from memory. And he's clearly obsessed on this. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage, lies whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on these pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Father.
love it. Gotta have some romantic poetry in there. Beautiful. Okay, this brings us to the end, to our epilogue. This is our last chance. Normally this is done in the form of letters, but I think we can have scenes here just to kind of take us out. I think I would like to suggest a scene between Ariadne, Tansy, Eleanor, and Chester. The 3 remaining.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we conduct this scene, do we want...
Then there were 3?
And there were 3. Do we want Ariadne to have figured out the actual truth, the whole truth?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. She quietly looks at the 3 of you. I know you did it. All of you. In your own way. The almonds, the shouting, standing over the body. There's not a good way to explain that, Chester. But I couldn't pin it on you. It didn't feel right, knowing the kind of man Alton was, that the 3 of you lived under his thumb and Lord Walnut's thumb for a time. Granted, it seems the man changed, but it seems the bulk of his life he either kept you all in the dark or pushed you to drink or, well, left you to your own devices in a way that clearly underserved you. And I just wanted you to know that you have my sympathies. And that it's hard for me to say that in your place I wouldn't have done the same. But you are free now.
Are we? Are any of us truly?
Word I haven't dreamed about for 23 years.
You're as free as one can be in this life. Or at least freer than you were. And sometimes relative freedom is all we have.
Well, I think given the circumstances in that case, you two might stay in the house for a little while.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I do have to confess one thing. I'm the one that ruined the portrait. Maybe we could take a new one.
I, too, have confessions. I was planning on leaving. Mother, I know how deeply that would hurt you, but Rufus is quite dear to me. And we were going to go to America to seek a different life. But with father gone, I do not know.
Well, if it were up to me, Rufus would be as welcome as I wish Tansy's father had been. But this is Tansy's house and Tansy's decision. But in the meantime, Lady Ariadne, I thank you for seeing through her carefully, sloppily cast facade to the truth we needed.
It is often the truth that is simplest, but it is also, they say, the truth that sets you free. I look forward to seeing what you make of yourselves. Templetons, walnuts, hawthorns. Perhaps just walnuts now.
Yes. It does have a better ring to it, doesn't it?
Some trees should be shorn at their base.
And I think with this, they have.
Am I lady now?
Oh yes, darling, welcome.
Congratulations. Do I get to call
Welcome
you
to the
sister?
upper class.
Not yet.
Lady Walnut! Lady Walnut lives!
Tansy Walnut.
Aw.
Tansy Walnut.
And with that, Death and the Family is concluded. Thank you, everyone, for sticking it out with us and seeing it through to the end of this delightful romp through Lady Susan P.I. and the murder mystery stylings of Agatha Christie. I'll just open it up. If anybody has any plugs, please say them now. And after that, we'll take it out.
Well, quickly.
Go ahead.
Quickly, I was just
announce next week.
Next week, y'all, on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the same channel. We are very excited. Us idiots here, Pooja, myself, Hopper, and unfortunately David has to DM us. We are going to be coming back with season 3 of Escape from Arkham. This time it's not a 2-parter. It is a full 5-week flight. And I am not nervous. It's going to be great. What could
I'm
happen?
gonna be nervous about.
You guys should tune in because who knows what's going to end up going down. It's Gotham.
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
Are we going
50-50
to tell them?
chance.
Are we going to tell them what really happened?
Oh yes, we should reveal.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's.
Full...
Do we want to go through our plugs and then do
Let's
the
do our
reveal?
plugs.
Quickly
and
finish
then-
up more things. Go
and then we would
Then
do
we'll have an end credit
the
scene.
reveal.
Yeah.
Great. So, wait, does that mean that I'm doing plugs now?
If you have
Yeah.
any.
I don't have any. I'm David. You can check out role-playing games that I've designed, including some that we've played on Flights of Fandom over at dbb-8.itch.io. My Instagram and Twitter are at dbrunelbrutman. I will be back here at 8 p.m. next week, GMing this extended flight with our Gotham henchmen coming into their own, getting out there in the world. I have some very exciting things planned, some very exciting cameos from the Batman universe in my head and hopefully appropriately coming out of my mouth. And I'm
You
really
are a
excited.
fucking genius with the voice voice acting.
You are
you're
very, very
too
good, but
kind.
also phrasing.
You're too kind. And I'm super excited to debut the next iteration of the Blades in the Dark style system that I've been working on that we're going to be using for this. So show up next week. It's going to be the Escape from Arkham crew cruising around Gotham playing Blades in the Dark. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going 5 weeks. It's going to be... I'm so pumped. It's
There will
gonna
be no
awesome.
feelings revealed. None. No eggs,
Nobody will
nothing.
reveal any
Does anyone have
feelings.
feelings left?
There
No one
will
has
not
feelings.
be.
What?
There will not be any reveals, double crosses, exciting set pieces, nothing of the sort. But show up anyway, please.
Yes.
And that's my plugs.
I am so anxious now. As
Why?
always, you should check out friends of the channel, Jeff Stormer and Party of One podcast, where they play awesome one-on-one RPGs using a wide range of different indie and alternative RPG systems, which are all super dope. You should check that out, and you should also check out All My Fantasy Children, which is a world-building podcast with Jeff Stormer and Eric Catano Saez.
I will absolutely second those. Both of those are an absolute delight. And if you want a good entry episode, I recently, I mean, it's not even that recently. It feels like recently, but it was like months ago. I recently listened to Party of One, where Jeff played his own game, which is called Anyone Can Wear the Mask, and it was a blast. So
Which might be also appearing on
We-
this
we
here
might.
channel. Who knows?
yeah,
Fingers
keep
crossed.
your eyes and ears peeled. But yeah, that's a good one to jump in because it's a game that the host designed.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing to add, just briefly, because 3 of us here are on the show, the part 2 of The Hole in the World will be coming back on, I believe it's the last Sunday in August,
August 29th.
August 29th. So come join us for that. It will be a delightful return to Saturnine, and there will be a lot of drama. So yeah.
And to keep things short, I am currently streaming on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, but you can find all of those details about what channel and time on my Twitter bio, which at Pooja. So we don't need to go through all that. But I will be here on this lovely channel next Tuesday with the this crew of ne'er-do-wells.
I think we do very well, thank you. But shall we tell the people that have stuck around, and also maybe the people watching not live, and we still appreciate your video on demand views. Thank you for joining us and witnessing the dumb fuck shit we make.
Yes.
indeed. Yes, let us reveal the murder most foul, the true death in the family. Let's tee it up. This was a multi-part murder. So do we want to start with where the murder started, Tansy?
Whatever are you talking about? Tansy, after having an absolutely massive row with Alton when she revealed copies of her certificate of birth and the letters between himself and Lord Walnut, basically selling off the granddaughter to a family in the local village. Had a massive confrontation, watched as what she thought were the only copies of that birth certificate go right into the fire, and just something snapped in her finally, after all these years of being nice and decent to this family and thinking that they were being very generous with her. Turns out that they were a bunch of liars and trying to keep her away from something that should have been her birthright. So she decided to take some matters into her own hands and poisoned Lord Walnut's nightcap. Oh, there's one more thing, though. It wasn't just his glass that got poisoned. She thought that Mother Dearest also drank some, but I guess in the excitement of Walnut drinking it first, she never got to take it.
Ooh. The murder that could have happened, but didn't.
Yes.
Delightful.
And speaking of Mother Dearest, Eleanor very much did pass out after drinking too much after dinner, but she woke up and was wandering the house and found her father in the study drinking a nightcap. And yes, unfortunately for Tansy, and I guess fortunately for Eleanor, she did not take a glass of her own because she was too incensed for at their portraiture earlier when, of course, the family wasn't getting along. Her father did say that I've changed the will once, I can change it again, when they were discussing Chester. And she went to confront her father about Chester. I'm trying to convince him that Chester deserved to be put in the will to get his birthright. And it escalated into an argument, as you would expect from a family that cannot communicate. And in a fit of 23 years of frustration bubbling out all at once, Eleanor shoved her father. He tripped over some statuary that was by the window and fell out of the window.
It was a brass cat.
Yes, the brass cat.
Yeah, like that Beastie Boys song.
That brass cat, by the way, was then subsequently hidden in Alton's study to help put blame on him should the time come.
An alternate version of this episode that focused more on the statuary would be called The Brass Cat, were it a Christie novel. But
so then now the body's outside. Then what
yes,
happened?
and then Chester.
Plummeting through the window, the body of Lord Walnut struck the ground pretty close to, quite close, in fact, to Chester, who was returning from a late night rendezvous with Rufus, the stable boy. Or a evening, whatever. We're look, don't judge. And
They fucked.
they fucked.
We love
is the point.
it.
Mother is proud.
Mother's just like in my own footsteps, and Chester's like, this seems unhealthy, but I feel good anyways. I
Fist
don't know.
bump.
I guess. And seeing his mother framed in this up there, and seeing the bad state Lord Chestnut was in.
Walnut.
Walnut. Shit. I've been going deep on the American Chestnut.
Lord Macadamia.
That's the sequel.
The almond milk.
You know, if we end up doing another one of these, we have to just keep up using different nuts.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So Chester stepped on his neck until he died. He just finished him off in order to protect his mother.
Oh, get the job done.
As we do. And
you can
that,
do all sorts of crimes without
And-
getting a hand steady.
and
Alton
with that,
was
Alton is actually
100% innocent
Innocent.
of any of this.
Of
But he
this
was a bastard,
specific
man.
crime.
He had
Well, also,
Specific
I
crime.
do want to know if Alton had known that the will was changed, would he not have taken matter into his own hands?
it wouldn't have been proper.
Hate it.
He's too law-abiding, too lawful.
Lawful
Alas.
evil.
Lawful evil. Gotta love those lawful evil.
Oh, do you guys want to know what I had prepped up if Eleanor had been the one that would have been targeted for the murder? Because it's real dumb and real extra.
All right, last thing, and then I gotta go.
Yep.
Okay. If you had been had the finger pointed at you, Chester was going to pronounce that he was in fact the one that did it, and shoot his father. Before fleeing the country with that monologue followed by prior to shooting his father, that monologue, and saying, in all of your struggles for gold and wealth, father, I hope that you have the alchemy to turn this into gold, and then shoot him.
Ha
I was sitting on that for a while just in case, but I wanted you guys to know.
That's like Clue, where it's like, and that's what happened. But what if it happened another way?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around. I think on the way out, you basically just hear Ariadne saying it was one of the most difficult cases of my entire life. But not because it was difficult to figure out the culprit, but rather what the right course of action was. But in the end, despite getting it wrong, I do think I got it right. And that is Death in the Family. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. This has been Flights of Fandom. And come back, join us next week for Return of Gotham.
I promise I won't do poetry at you.
Don't be too quick to make promises.
Bye, y'all.
We'll find out.
I don't plan on it.
See you next time.